Hi, so this is a response to Kevin Fishburne's 240p video. So my vision is to be able to go out and buy, in the year 2017, a $50 Raspberry Pi, hook it up to a CRT, and get an experience that's identical to the original hardware. Essentially a turnkey solution for playing old games on a CRT. And I'd say we're almost there. We're about 95% of the way there. And the last remaining 5% is what I want to talk about in a possible solution to it. So what you're looking at right now is Super Mario Brothers running on the original hardware. And we'll consider this the gold standard. And you'll notice that the image is very crisp. There's no pixel crawl happening when you move. And for example, the black lines right there are very crisp and they don't bleed into the brown at all. So this is what we want on the Raspberry Pi. Unfortunately, out of the box, we don't get that. We get this instead. And at first glance, this doesn't look too bad, but pretty soon you'll notice that something's off. First of all, the aspect ratio is off. The image is actually getting stretched rather than centered. And also, without bilinear filtering, you get a lot of flickering and pixel crawl happening. And you also get stretching artifacts like this, and you see the black line has been getting duplicated. So I'll pause it here and then switch to the original, and notice the black lines are very crisp. And here the image is stretched. We're getting artifacts. So you might say, okay, well, just turn on bilinear filtering, that'll fix the problem. Unfortunately, it does fix some problems, but it creates other problems. So it's fixed the pixel crawl issue, but then it's starting to blur. It's causing the black lines to smear into the brown. So once again, I'll switch to the original hardware. The black lines are crisp. Raspberry Pi, it looks very muddy. So the problem is that not only is the image getting stretched, but the pixels are not getting sampled at the middle of the pixels. So it's picking up neighboring pixels. So this is where the Snap Shader 240p comes in. You can get it for free on GitHub. I'll provide a link in the description below. But you'll notice that the black lines are not crisp. Aspect ratio is correct. And this is comparing the original. This is comparing the Raspberry Pi. And then when you start moving, there is no pixel crawl happening. I'll go here, pause it, and then on the NES, and we'll also go to the exact same location. This is the NES, and this is the Raspberry Pi. And by the way, this shader will probably work with the RetroTink. The reason why you might want to use it with the RetroTink is because you don't really want to spend a lot of time configuring all the various consoles, because this shader will position things correctly regardless of what console you're playing on. And just to demonstrate that it works on other consoles aside from the NES, I'll demonstrate an arcade game. Let's first turn off the shader and start the original Street Fighter 2. You'll notice that there's actually a lot of pixel crawl happening when the camera pans up right here. And the image is stretched as well. But if we turn on the shader, all that pixel crawling is gone, and you get the correct aspect ratio. Essentially an image that's identical to the arcade or arcade machine. So in summary, well, let me just load up the Sega Genesis game. So in summary, for $50 you can go out and buy a Raspberry Pi, hook it up to your CRT, and get an experience that's identical to the original hardware essentially. And I would love to see in the future a LACA distribution or some offshoot of the LACA distribution that supports 240p, is configured for 240p out of the box, and has either this shader or something similar, the same concept built in, so that there's no setup and it's a turnkey solution. And I should mention that it's not, it's 99% of the way there, and that last 1%, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do with the built-in composite out, and that's the 45-degree angles. It's most apparent, and that's because the built-in composite out is fixed to 720 pixels across, and that doesn't happen to be a multiple of 256 for NES and Sega Master System, so the 45-degree angles are noticeably not as smooth as the original, but for all intents and purposes it doesn't bother me personally. And the other thing I should mention is the cost of the shader. Actually, it doesn't do any processing of the image. All it does is align things correctly in the vertex shader, so the cost is essentially free or minimal, and it doesn't add to the latency at all. So that's the good news. And as a postscript, I will show you another NES game, Ninja Gaiden, that exhibits a lot of flickering with the stock shader. So you notice a lot of flickering happening here, and if you use the new shader, all that goes away. No flickering, stable image, just the way we want it. Alright, thanks for watching.